to a roundtable discussion, and we're talking about one of the most important questions, or we're asking one of the most important questions facing our economy as a country. Now, just 2 years ago, we're doing a debt to GDP ratio of about 93% or so, the kind of number that makes investors very nervous and keeps government borrowing costs high. And fast forward to now, the IMF is projecting that Ghana can bring that figure down to 60% by the end of this year. But the big question is that really achievable? What does it take to sustain that kind of progress? Is it discipline? Is it reforms? Or perhaps a bit of good luck? And more importantly, how does this debt story affect you and me? The jobs we want, the taxes we pay, and the prices we see in the market every day. And so joining me in studio is Dr. George Domfe. He is a professor at the university, a development economist at the University of Ghana. He joins me in studio for this conversation. Dr. Domfe, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you doing, sir?
By His grace, I'm doing very well.
It's a pleasure. To have you come here is a great pleasure. We're so grateful that you made time.
I'm also honored to be here.
All right, great. So we'll talk about a lot of things. I mean, because once you have you here, we can touch on any economic thing that we think we want to touch on. But let's get into our conversation for today. Now, in 2022, we're doing about 93% debt to GDP ratio. And fast forward to somewhere last year, I think we're doing about 60, correct me if I'm wrong, about 61 or so. And IMF is projecting that we can do 60% by the end of this year. Let's start from what took us to that 93%, and then we try to break it down. So if you can help us, let's get into the conversation from there.
Okay, so let me first of all start by thanking you for this opportunity. And also to say very good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners. So debt has been a problem to this country since time immemorial. As an economy, we haven't done much creating enough resources to meet our expenditure. And so almost every year, we incur fiscal deficit. What that means is that we always spend more than we generate.
True.
And once you spend more than you generate, the only way to keep yourself afloat is to borrow. And so that is what we have been doing. I wouldn't want to go back too much, but I just want to send us to the memory lane. Somewhere the year 2000, Ghana was highly indebted because at that time our debt to GDP ratio was 182%. And when we say debt to GDP ratio, it is calculated simply by dividing the total GDP by the the total debt stock by GDP, and you multiply by 100. And Ghana, we are a member of West African states that have decided to use one currency called ECO. One of the conditionalities that would get all of us to use the common currency is that we should all have a debt to GDP ratio below 70%. And so the threshold for us is 70%. What it means is that anytime any country in the sub-region incurs debt to GDP ratio of over 70%, it means that country is in debt crisis.
All right.
In other words, that country's debt has become unsustainable. And when in economics we say debt unsustainability, we are explaining that the government has been overwhelmed with debt in such a way that interest payment is taking a chunk of what would have gone to construct roads for the people, what would have gone to increase salaries and all that. And so when government finds itself in a situation where servicing debt means you have to compromise on social interventions. Provision of educational and health services and all that, and your citizens are struggling, then it means you are in debt crisis. And so that was where we were when President Ajikum Kufuor became the leader. Unfortunately, at that time, there was an ongoing debt relief program called HIPIC. And so you only needed to keep your books right, and they would cancel your debt. As a small economy, our external debt that was at the time huge, almost, running into I mean, that was a huge. At that time, domestic debt was very small. And so most of our debt was external. And it was running into about 6.4 billion US dollars. That was quite a lot. But as soon as we subscribed to the HIPIC conditionalities and we agreed to the terms and conditions of the program, right away they canceled 4 billion of our debt.
Right.
Yeah, and that happened in the year 2006. And so 2006, debt to GDP ratio, that was 182, because when you are debt to GDP ratio is 182, it means you have gone far beyond the 70% threshold. So you were in serious crisis, you know. And so at that time, we needed a savior. Unfortunately, the savior came and our debt went down drastically, you know, because 4.4 was unconditionally cancelled.
Yeah.
The remaining 2.4 billion, the conditions was that we should create that money. We will not use it to pay our creditors. But once we are able to rake those money that would have gone to pay them, we should spend those monies on infrastructure in 3 sectors of the economy: sanitation, health, and education. And they didn't even trust we would do that. And so anytime we did it, we had to write on that particular project, HIPIC funded.
Yeah.
And so even today, when you move around, you will see washrooms, sanitation, toilet. You know, that's the sanitation, sometimes education, sometimes health facility with HIPIC funded. That was the meaning. And for the next 20 years from the day of the agreement, that was how we were going to pay the 2.4 billion. So we never paid them. We raised the money and we spent the money in this country. That was fantastic. So more or less, our total debt stock was almost what? Let me say, they took almost every burden off our shoulder. And that created a unique opportunity for us at that time to think of how we could raise more revenue to stay independent on our own. Because anytime you take so much from people, they tend to control you. They tend to tell you what you should do. It's not good. For example, we are all working at the University of Ghana as lecturers. Okay. The month ends. I come to you to ask you to give me maybe 2,000, you know, so that when the month ends, I will give it to you. The month hasn't ended. I can't pay you now. But I have seen you running after, you know, my daughter or my wife, even my wife. Let me say my wife. Right. It will be very difficult for me to,
because you owe me.
You know. So the moment you take so much from people, they tend to tell you what you should do rather than what you want to do. And that has always been the situation. And so sometimes I tell Ghanaians that our governments are not the ones ruling us. We are being controlled, left and right. And so we are not getting to our destination because we know the route to where we want to go. But somebody somewhere is telling you should pass here and there because you've taken so much from that person. You are indebted to the person and you can't even think. So that has been the situation. Now, let's see something very interesting that happened. 2006. By 2006, the debt to GDP ratio that stood at 182 at the time Chairman Rawlings was hesitant, had dropped to 26%.
Wow.
And that was the lowest debt stock we had in over 3 decades. And so our economy was resilient, very robust. That was 2006 because you were not owing, so you didn't have to pay anybody. And so all that we were raising, we were spending it
internally. Right.
And was it sustainable? 2007, 2008, President Kufuor started borrowing.
Again?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's largely because we didn't have things in place. So it looks like maybe you borrowed something, or maybe I borrowed money from you, and you say, okay, don't worry, take everything that you borrowed, don't pay me back anymore. Because I still don't have a job, because I'm still not able to raise money, I'll still borrow some more. And that was our situation, isn't it?
Yeah, that was it. You are very right, because we were still not raking in enough to meet our expenditure. We had serious infrastructural deficit. Kumasi Road needed to be fixed. You know, President Kufuor did very well when it comes to infrastructure. Takoradi, Cape Coast Yamronza Accra Road had to be fixed. Malam Junction, Tetekwashe had to be fixed. You see, those were the days all those roads were constructed. Some of them came with grant anyway. For example, Tetekwashe to Malam Junction was a grant Kufuor got from Millennium Development Challenge. But the road from Circle all the way to Techiman, had to be constructed, mostly with loans. And so you saw Achimota, in Sawem, when you get there, you see the bypass. In Koko, you see the bypass. All those things, And so you can't fault President Kufuor
too much
for borrowing.
Because development must happen.
It must, And when he started doing that, our debt to GDP ratio that dropped from 182 in 2000 to 26 in 2006 went up to 32. At that time, the interesting part of the story was that NDC was in opposition, and we saw Fifi Kwete, now I think the General Secretary of NDC.
Yeah, General Secretary.
He used to do a program that we all loved it. He's setting the record straight. And he would blame President Kufuor for pushing the debt to GDP back again to 32. And then, he has a certain way of, reckless. Right. And the way Fifi was vocal and NDC became so popular because you was so much indebted. You've gone for debt relief. They have almost cancelled and taken all the burden off your shoulder. And within 2 years, you pushed debt to GDP ratio from 26 to 32. That was bad.
Yeah.
That was bad. Reckless. Kufuor, so those were the days, reckless expenditure was almost on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
But some of us thought that moving it for 2 years from 26 to 32, averagely, you were adding about 4 percentage points a year. 6%. 26 to 32. That is 8, isn't it? That is 8. So for 2 years. So averagely, you were adding 4 percentage points every year.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I didn't see that to be too serious. But that was how people accepted it. In fact, President Mills' campaign message centered mostly around that. And I was wondering that NDC, were you not the same party who took us to 182? And somebody had negotiated, brought it to 26. And now you are complaining that they have sent it to 32. But when you talk about it, they say that is politics. And if you are not careful, you will have a problem, even raising your voice. And so, my brother, what happened? NDC won, President Mills came. And let me say that the first 3 years of that government was good. Very modest.
Right.
As modest as he was, he tried to make sure we didn't add much to our debt. And so at the time Kufuor was handing over power, our total debt stock stood at $8 billion. $8 billion. Kufuor came to meet it at $7.1 billion. So Rawlings left it to Kufuor $7.1 billion. He managed it and moved it to $8 billion.
In 8 years.
Yeah, in 8 years. Yeah, because of the HAPIC.
Yeah.
It could have gone up.
Yeah,
but because they canceled so much, over 4 billion, and later, as years went on, they were also still deducting. And so let me say that because of that, otherwise Kufuor would have added, close to about 8. He could have added more.
That's true.
But because they canceled, technically, he added less than 1 billion to our debt. Less than 1 billion. And he was insulted, the way we do our politics, because sometimes they want attention of the people, and so they will make the government look so bad. And I think they were not fair to go for 8 years managing Ghanaian economy. 8 years with 900, because that's how you would see it. If he did not go for HAPIC as a president, nobody would have known even about that. And indeed, let me say that when he also took us to HAPIC to beg for our debt to be cancelled, the opposition didn't take. They didn't spare him at all. Because why would you have to take Ghana, to disgrace Ghana, to tell people that we are poor. Because going HIPC meant that you were telling people that you are poor, you can't pay your debt, so they should forgive you. That was what it meant. They ridiculed him. And so I was thinking that this man did very well. And to me, one of the best managers of the economy from 1957 to date. No, the best economists in this world cannot debate me on that and say anything differently. Was Kufuor. He did so well. Excellently well. Now, he left the whole thing to Mills, as I said. Mills came, didn't want to spend. And so the first year, 2009, he didn't spend at all. So what happened? Our growth, because before Kufuor left, the economy was growing at 9%. Because Mills came and we didn't spend. The following year, 2009, growth fell to around 4%.
Okay.
Because when you are not spending, it's not anything so good though. Unfortunately, Ghanaians, I don't know who told us, even my own colleagues at the university, move around telling everybody they will go everywhere, move around telling everybody that, we don't have to spend. But you see, you can decide to do that. So the two of us, you have 3 children. I have 3 children. We all have wives. Okay. And we are sharing apartment, maybe we are, your apartment is next to mine. Let me say that. Maybe we stay at the same, we are sharing the same block, and you have 2-bedroom apartment, I have 2-bedroom apartment, we receive the same salary, and then I decide to go for loan, to maybe open some provision shop or something just to supplement my salary. The moment I do that, I'm going to be indebted. You decide to stay glued to your salary. And then after my shop, you see that I begin to buy cars, to do Uber and all those things. I'll be indebted. But that does not mean that you are better than me.
Because at the end of the day, you'll be able to sell the things in a provision shop and still get some money.
And get so much money. Maybe my wife is not working, your wife is not working. My wife can take care of this business. I begin car rental businesses. My wife can take care of it. In fact, I'm trying to say this to suggest that when you are looking for countries that are highly indebted, in trillions of dollars,
the US.
You are talking about US. You are talking about Japan. And so, just going for the loan does not make you bad. But when you make prudent use of it, so there's another way of saying because of corruption. When you spend, it doesn't mean that you are corrupt. But we are trying to now equate expenditure to corruption. If the system is so clean and good, then it's good we spend. Because if you don't spend, your economy will shrink. Your GDP goes down. You can't create job. You become import dependent. And you can't do better. So that was how Professor Mills wanted to. And I never agree with him anyway. Because with him around, our debt he would have been able to control our debt, but our poverty situation would have gone up. You see, any economic decision that you make has its own advantages and disadvantages. And sometimes you have to look at it too. And then you weigh if the advantages will be more than the disadvantages, then you stay away from that decision. Now Professor Mills left. Then the then young man, John Dramani Mahama became president. And I like him. As soon as he came, aggressively he started borrowing. You see, there were projects. At least you can show projects that he did. He started borrowing and he borrowed. So at the end of 2016, our debt had moved to $29.2 billion US. I'm trying to speak dollar because that is more stable. If you bring cedi, depreciation and appreciation will confuse people. You will not understand the debt. Sometimes people, because today, if our total debt stock is $1, and $1 is equals to 1 cedi, okay, and then I have not borrowed, but cedi depreciates, and I have to exchange 4 cedis for $1. Your debt in cedi will go up. Okay. And so people may think that you have borrowed, but that is not borrowing. That is what depreciation. I kept on telling when around 2022, people were saying the government has borrowed so much.
Yeah.
In terms of dollar, you wouldn't see the debt going up. In fact, from 2021 to date, we saw, in terms of dollar, we saw our debt going down. But because $1 was 6 cedis 20 pesos at the beginning of 2022, and by the end of 2022, it jumped over 15 cedis on the interbank exchange exchange rate, and then even forex, it went as far as 17. And so, if you look at those things, then the debt went up.
Yeah.
And I had a problem with Franklin Kujo, my own friend. Imani. You know, he would come out and talk about how the debt had escalated, had gone up, and I like Ghanaian media making noise about it. But I was always telling Ghanaians that, no, it is because of the debt restructuring, which I will come to that. Right. Our debt is what? Falling. But it's because of the cedis depreciation that has created that. So in terms of CD, you see the debt going up. And so you see my discussion, I don't want to be using CDs because if you use CD, appreciation will push your debt down. Depreciation will push your debt up. Even when you are not pay, you haven't done anything about it. And it is important we try to extricate, the impact of exchange rate when you are talking about debt, because that is another issue, And so, coming back quickly to our debt, President Mahama pushed our debt from 8 billion in 2008 to 29.2 billion. And so in the 8 years, they added 21.15 billion dollars, and that is the highest that any government has added to our debt stock. Listeners and viewers, I will just challenge you, go quickly to Bank of Ghana's, Ministry of Finance's website. If you go there, we have, if you go to Ministry of Finance's website, we have, they always, reports. They always release reports. And one of the popular reports is debt report, debt accumulation report. It is always there. All the figures that I'm talking about are there. They are there. Yeah, you see all of them live. You pick the year and you see it. So 2008, our total debt stock was $8 billion US. At the end of 2016, it had gone to 29.2 billion. So President Mahama added so much, 21. And you see, when you add so much, it brings what? Payment. When you borrow $1, before you finish paying, you would have paid about $5. The interest rate is always so high, especially Eurobond. So high. So we borrowed. Unfortunately, the payment became problem. So I'm saying that borrowing is not bad. It's all about how well you are able to use it. But again, I'm also saying that it's not because you are hungry. My brother, if you are very hungry and you go home and they give you food, because you are hungry, must you use 2 hands to eat? You definitely must use one hand. And so that is to say that the borrowing should have a limit.
That's true.
The fact that it is good does not mean that we should be borrowing. And so if you, as far as I'm concerned, because if you look at our interest payments, because Kufuor knocked out almost all our external debt, and there was that huge fiscal space, Ghana wasn't spending so much on interest payment. And so for you to borrow so much, 21 billion within 8 years, I think is something that I will not understand.
Right.
So when Kufuor he made trouble. And let me tell viewers that the debt to GDP ratio that was 182 in 2006 constant prices dropped to 26 in the year 2006, moved up again to 32 at the time Kufuor was
2008 or 7, yeah.
So 32% at the time Kufuor was hesitant. But it hit 71% in the year 2014. And so 2014, we were back into debt crisis. I've said that if you use the West African convergence criteria, the moment your debt to GDP ratio hits 70% threshold, you are in debt crisis.
Right.
And so 2014, 2015, 2016, Ghana was in serious debt crisis. And President Mahama came out openly to admit that we have eaten all the flesh and we were left with bones. I'm sure Ghanaians would remember him for this. Yeah, when I'm penning and he was right. The economy started having a lot of problems. And so April 2015, we ran to an IMF for assistance because the cedi was depreciating as if it was nobody's business, and things were really difficult for Ghana. And it wasn't raining. Agricultural sector had collapsed because it wasn't raining. Then when it wasn't raining, not only did it affect agricultural sector, but it also affected the generating capacity of, the hydro, electricity generating and capacity. And so when that became compromised, we had became known as what? Doomsday, And so things were really very bad. And Akufo-Addo inherited this economy. And let me tell viewers that for the first time since 2006, debt-to-GDP ratio fell. Akufo-Addo inherited it, picked it from 73.1. Debt-to-GDP ratio, 73.1. That's how, from 32, with all the noise, Akufo moved from 26 to 32. With all the noise, I was thinking NDC will come and push it down. They rather move it to 73.1 at the time. President Mahama was hesitant. And Ghana was back again in debt crisis, as I said. 2014, 2015, 2016, we were in debt crisis. 2017, debt to GDP ratio fell for the first time to 68.9. For the first time since 2006, we saw debt to GDP ratio falling. But let me say, you don't want to give all that credit to Akufo-Addo. You know why? 2015, when we went for the IMF
bailout.
Extended credit facility. Part of the whole thing was fiscal consolidation. That meant that raise more revenue and cut down your expenditure so you don't incur debt accumulation. And so a lot of things were put in place in running from 2015 to 2026. 2016. And so when 2017 came, we were still under the program, and we were managing things better. And so let me say the program, IMF program, was significant reason why our debt dropped. The debt to GDP ratio, we were able to manage it well in 2017. People would say that, but 2015, it was 72.8. And the following year, it went to 73. Had it not been for the program, maybe it would have gone up higher. And so that there was just marginal increase. It didn't surprise me when the following year, 2017, it dropped. So IMF had a serious hand in that. And we will talk about that later. Somebody always come to tell us what we must do it right, to get it right. And so it went down actually. 2018 was a very good year for Ghana. Because 2018, Ghana's fiscal service decided to rebase our economy. Rebasing the economy simply means that you are changing the constant year prices. And when you do that, your GDP will automatically become very, very big. Why? Because we were using 2006 constant prices. When we are measuring GDP is a unit produced multiplied by unit price multiplied by quantity produced. And so if cocoa is the only thing we do in Ghana, and this year we produce 1 bag of cocoa and the price is 100 cedis, our total GDP is what, 100. Right? If next year we produce 1 bag of cocoa and the price moves to 200, our GDP goes what, 200. But that GDP is on nominal GDP. Nominal GDP. And if you use that one, it will not help you because inflation, increases in prices, will not help you to know whether you are doing well. In actual fact, if last year you produce a bag of maize and it was 100 cedis, today a bag of maize is what? 200, for which reason your GDP, and all you do in the economy is maize production. So if because of that, GDP has moved to 200, what have you added to your people? Is it not the same one bag of maize that is available for consumption? And so their welfare hasn't changed. But if you use the nominal GDP, moving from 100 to 200, it may appear to you that you are doing well, when you are not doing well. So because of that, we don't use constant prices. Sorry, we don't use current prices to measure GDP. Right. If you use current prices, the GDP you get, we call it what? Nominal GDP. So every country uses what we call constant prices. In other words, constant means fixed prices.
Right.
And so all the figures that I was talking about were 2006 constant prices. And so the moment the economy, you change the base year to assume a new constant year prices, we say you have rebased.
Okay.
And so in 2018, we gave away on 2006 constant prices, because what it meant was that anytime we measured GDP, we were using prices in 2006. So we gave away and we adopted 2013 constant prices. In fact, today we are still using 2013 constant prices.
Why is that so? Why do we still use
2013?
Yeah, 2013.
I think I've explained. So I was saying that GDP is what measured by the total quantity produced multiplied by unit price.
Right.
And so if the unit, and I'm using cocoa or maize, let me use maize. So if this country, all we do is maize production. And this year, we have produced just one bag of maize. But the unit price is what? 100 cedis. Your total GDP is what? 100 times 1, which is what? 100 cedis.
100 cedis.
Now, next year, if God helps us and the maize price goes up to what? 200. But we are not able to increase production. Increasing production means how well you are performing. But we were still able to produce only one bag of maize. It means we are stagnating. We haven't improved.
Yeah,
but if the price is 200, your GDP has become 200.
Right.
And so it might appear to you that you are doing well.
You are doing well, but you're not.
Yeah, and those GDP, we call them nominal GDP.
Yeah.
We don't use them. And so if you want to really be serious, we use what we call rare GDP.
Right. Okay.
The rare GDP is when you adopt a particular year's constant prices. And so what I'm talking about, we were using 2006 constant prices. 2018, we adopted 2013 constant prices, because if you also continue to use very, very old constant prices, it belittles your performance. Right. You don't see, when you're doing well, you don't see it. And so as we move along, we always rebase the economy by adopting what? New year constant prices that can reflect on what we are doing now. And so we move it to 2013.
Okay.
And when Ghana Statistical Service moved the constant year from 2006 to 2013, because 2013 prices were higher than they were in 2006. So obviously, your GDP will become very big. Because of that, our GDP became 24.2% bigger in 2018. I have told you that debt to GDP ratio is measured by dividing the total debt stock by GDP times what? 100.
100, yeah.
So if you rebase and your GDP becomes bigger, what will happen to your total debt to GDP ratio? It goes down when the base becomes bigger.
Yeah.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
And so, 2018, we rebased, we moved from 2006 constant prices to 2013 constant prices. And when we did, our GDP became 24.2% bigger. When it became 24.2 bigger, our debt to GDP ratio then fell automatically. And what President Mahama left that was 73.1 in 2006 constant prices now became 55.9% in 2013 constant prices. Okay. So the politicians, when they want to confuse people, they will use the 15.
Right.
I mean, they will use 2013 constant prices.
Yeah.
But I kept on telling people that if you are speaking for NDC, you don't say President Mahama left debt to GDP ratio of 55. He left it at 73 because at that time it was the 73 that we used to procure all loans and all that. And so you can't go back and tell people that we have rebased and we have even seen that our debt to GDP ratio should have been 55 for that reason. Let's renegotiate. So it doesn't make sense. But the question is, why do we then go back? We go back so you are able to compare what you are doing now to what happened yesterday. And so our debt to GDP ratio fell. And to 55, I think 0.9, instead of the 73, using the new base. So we call it new base.
New base.
And that is what slowed to 62.5 at the end of 2019. So I'm using the word slow because if you look at 32 to 71 from 2008 to 71 in 2014, then moving it from 55 to 62, 2016 to...
It's actually something slow. Right.
It meant that the first 3 years of Akufo-Addo government, they did very well. But I will tell you that maybe because also of the presence of IMF, because we left the program April 2019, you know. And so the debt to GDP ratio, we were able to control our debt below the 70% threshold. Unfortunately, November 2019, we read the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, read a budget and said that we were going to spend 85 billion and we were going to rake in 66 billion. And so the difference would have translated into 4.7% of our fiscal deficit. That was very good. You know, they didn't know there was going to be something called COVID. We entered the year 2022, there was COVID. And so because of COVID, instead of spending 85, they ended up spending $104 billion Ghana cedis. And instead of raking in 68 billion, they were able to rake in only 55 billion. So there was that huge expenditure, revenue expenditure gap. Government borrowed about 49 billion. Bank of Ghana had to step in, IMF, so many places. And so that year we borrowed. And so our debt to GDP ratio moved to 76.1% the year 2000. In the new prices, 2013 prices.
In the year 2000 and
the year 2020.
2020, yes.
76.1%. You know, that was huge. And then 2021, it moved a bit to 78. You know, it didn't go far. Yeah, but at the end of 2021, our total debt stock had ballooned to 60 billion. So I talked about J. Kufuor leaving it at what? 8 billion.
8 billion, yeah.
Mahama Mills pushing it to 29.2 billion. And now at the end of 2021, Akufo-Addo pushing it to 60 billion. So you can imagine. And our debt to GDP ratio were in serious debt crisis. We have moved far beyond the 70 and we're in crisis. And so Ken Ofori-Atta was very smart. As soon as he saw this, he decided to open up negotiations for our debt to be restructured. Right. And there were 4 components of our debt that he was able to restructure. Let me not remind viewers, one of it was the domestic bond. You know, $20.3 billion US was how much was involved with these negotiations. You know, and when you say domestic bond, it wasn't only Ghanaians, foreigners. In fact, huge sums of, I think a chunk of it, the highest proportion of it had come from who came to Ghana to buy the local bond, CD-denominated bonds. But again, it affected the banks, it affected the individuals. We all know. But government gained so much. So when it affected the individuals and the other people, the beneficiary was what? Government. Okay? Again, what happened? Another one was the Eurobond. Ghana started going to the European bond market to take bonds for the first time in 2007 under President Ajikum Kufuor and Eurobond. By that time, by the end of 2021, Ghana had borrowed $13.1 billion US from an Eurobond. So our total 60 billion, 13.1 billion out of it was coming from Eurobond. It was so much. Ken Ofori-Atta. And when I hear people insult him, it pains me so much. He did so well. Ken Ofori-Atta, because you know he knows so well about the capital market, he was able to negotiate, and they accepted a haircut treatment of 37%, which meant that 4.7 billion of the 13.1 billion was slashed off. So almost like President Kufuor's time.
Yeah.
Okay, almost like President Kufuor's time. And the commercial one, bilateral is a loan that we had from, when one country borrows from another country, that is called bilateral. So that one as well, we're owing so much to China.
Yeah.
You know, and that amounted, I think that was over 5 billion. That one also they renegotiated a whole lot. And today, when people say Atto is false, and I tell them Atto is not doing anything. And I have been saying this, and if Atto is here, I wish one day Atto is here, I'm here. He should tell us what exactly he's doing people say he's forcing. You know, because you see, with all these debt cancellations, the understanding was that the debt stock that every 3 months we are supposed to pay service with amortization and debt servicing with the interest payment. The negotiations were that we have suspended most of them, over 80% of them, and we start payment of the debt stock from 2027. So if at that time you become finance minister, you didn't meet Ken Ofori-Atta's trouble, where the whole world was in trouble. And
but I think it was the same thing for the
they also
had
it.
They also had,
and that's why I talked about it.
Kufuor also had
that's what I talked about.
President Akufo-Addo also had benefits from the previous.
They did. That's why I talked about that IMF program. But this one, it has been double, because apart from the IMF program that they are benefiting, again, they are also the debt restructuring. That was not part of the IMF thing. That one started from the end of 2021. And it has given Ghana a lot. It has given Ghana a lot. I'm telling you, and I will show it to you. Kingsley Atuforsen went to Parliament 28 March, and then presented the debt situation to Ghana. And when he did, look at the last row. You will see our debt stock in dollars. The last row, okay? And when you see it, this is in millions. So 2021, you see 60-something thousand. That is all. That is what $60 billion that I'm talking about. Okay? Because of the debt restructuring, you see that our debt was going down.
It was going
down. December 2024, our debt had dropped to 49.3 billion US dollars. 49.3 billion US dollars. Our debt. But recently, when Atuforsen did his media review, he said he is the reason for the drop in debt. And when this particular document that I'm showing you, it is in at the page, I think 33, page 33 of the big push. And he presented this to Parliament on 28th March. And these figures are there. And I mean, under these figures, you see them mentioning the reason for the drop in debt. They mention debt restructuring of Eurobonds. All these things are here. And then he comes out to say something that is very different. And sometimes, and when you say it, I mean, the people are attacking you. Why can't we be truthful to the people? So our debt dropped. But you see, at the time we were getting so much, you see that 2021, in terms of CD, our debt was 362 billion. 2022, it went to 449. 2023, 610. And then 2024, 726. At the time, in terms of dollar, it was declining. In terms of CD, it was going up because of depreciation. Right. That's why I have problem with Franklin Kujo. He's not here. I shouldn't be mentioning his name, but he speaks so much about public, and I'm not saying anything bad about him because he still even insists that they increase the debt so much, and I mean, you only have to leave him. I mean, because I have to forgive him. I'm a public sector, I'm an economist. And so these figures, I use them to teach all the time. And that's why you see when I show you the figures, it's just like those that I've been mentioning. If you look at, I don't mix my figures. Because I'm always teaching. This year, just ended semester, I taught 4 different groups. I'm a public sector economist. I'm at Legon, 1 PhD and 3 different master programs. And so all these figures, I'm always mentioning them, talking about them, and that is why. Also, the decline in the share of the external debt was largely due to the debt
restructuring program.
Restructuring. But of course, you can't also fault at all because CD also appreciated so much. April 10th, $1 was 14 cedis, 90 pesos. By the end of May, it had dropped to 10 cedis, 30 pesos. And when a CD gains so much value, our debt in cedis dropped. But when it happens like that, it doesn't mean your debt is going away. In terms of dollar, it is still as it is.
That's true.
So the external debt, the external one that you have to pay, there's nothing you can do about it. Your depreciation doesn't matter when you are going to pay the external. Maybe the domestic one, And so we have to be very careful. When CD is stronger, we all love it. And so that is how we will say it affected the debt. Now, because of this,
just before you continue, let me just announce the phone line so that our listeners and our viewers who would want to text into the show will do that. So if you just tuned in, or if you're listening to us, you can send us a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, 0544321019, or you can call me on 0303956641, 0303956641. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH and also on YouTube at Z Multimedia. You can visit those platforms and drop a comment, and then we get to read your messages for you. We're speaking this morning to Dr. Domfe. Dr. Joe Domfe. He is a development economist at the University of Ghana, and he's helping us have a conversation on whether we've not even come to the meat of the conversation. Anyway, we'll try to talk about where we've come from, in terms of our debt as a country, and how we got to somewhere 93% by the end of last year or so. And then we're now trying to, we'll come back to all the progress that we've made, and then what exactly will center on the conversation that we're having today, whether the 60% debt to GDP ratio that the IMF is expecting by the end of the year is realistic and very achievable. And that's what we'll talk about briefly. But Doc, you can continue, and then
okay. So I was even going
to our time as well. So
I was even going to answer the question.
Okay.
And the answer to the question whether it's achievable.
No, we'll come to that. Just finish your public.
So our debt that was 60 billion at the end of 60 billion US dollars. At the end of 2021, dropped to 49.3 billion at the end of 2024. And when it did, our debt to GDP ratio that had gone far beyond 70%, for which reason our debt was unsustainable, also dropped significantly to 61.8% at the end of 2024. And so at the end of 2024, our debt to GDP ratio was 61.8%. And when we entered the year 2025, the debt restructuring still was working. So somewhere in March, we had debt relief of over $2 billion, almost $3 billion. I've forgotten the figure, but it was huge. And recently, if we heard France, Macron also even wrote off our debt, about 87 million euros of our debt. So that negotiations kind of started. Had been going on, and our debt had been going down. In fact, by the end of April, our debt had gone down to 44 billion, and our debt to GDP ratio fell below 50% for the first time in many years. For the first time, I think since 2000, for almost more than 10 years. And so that was a very good thing we saw, but was it sustainable? At the end of July, our debt has gone back again to 59.9 billion US dollars at the end of July. So almost the same as it was in 2021 within the last few months. And because our debt had gone back again to 59.9, now our debt to GDP ratio is expected to move back again upwards. And so that's what IMF has seen, and they are wondering whether it is feasible for us to get what figure did you mention?
60%.
60% to get the 60%. Last year we were almost there, 61.8. Except that this year I think we are overborrowing. And I'm recently President Mahama said that his last 8 years, 8 months as a president, he hasn't borrowed. And I was shocked.
I'm sure he wanted to say externally. I'm sure.
Exactly, he wanted to even talk about capital market.
Capital market, yeah.
We are, in fact, the capital market, and it is not an achievement, because at the end of 2021, we were in junk status. Our debt situation was so bad that we were in junk status. So when you are in junk status, you can't go there to borrow. And so from 2022 coming,
it's not that you don't want to borrow, but you can't.
You can't. You are not allowed. And so 2023, we didn't go there. Okay. 2024, we didn't go there. So if you came and we are not going there, it's not that you decided that you will not go there. Of course, recently, we were upgraded now to be managed with stable outlook. And I think by Accenture or something. And then when that happened, I think we can now renegotiate our way back to the capital market, which the government hasn't done that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think in his address, when he met the media, he actually said that they weren't going to go there yet.
Yeah, but I don't even think we have to go there.
To go there anyway.
We went there for the first time 2007. And before we could say, Jack, it has ballooned to the small dollars that we took, went up to 13.1 billion. You see, European bond market is not for any government, it's for individuals. And the coupon rate, what we call the interest rate, is so high, so exorbitant. And if you are not careful, you chief people call such almost chief customer can say it's like you have gone to snake to borrow. It's so harsh. I wish we don't go there again. But you see, it's so easy to get. And so the governments always want to get it. And I must say that over the past few years, those that went for it, they were using it to pay what we have already accumulated. And that is why I clap for Ken Ofori-Atta for reducing the debt, from 13.1 billion to 4.7 billion. It is mainly due to his negotiation skills. He was so excellent in that because, you see...
But we still have to pay anyway ahead. We still have to pay ahead, right? In 2026, we have some to pay.
From 2027, we are going to pay. And that is why we were cautioning them that the dollars, they should be careful the way they were pumping the dollars to protect the cedi. It was so artificial because now you are not paying that. What about 2027? 2027 will definitely come.
Yeah.
And so this is a time, and thank God now, commodity prices are very good. Gold prices very good. Cocoa prices very good. And so now more, dollars entering the country.
Yeah.
This is the time we have to, put so much into our gross domestic reserves. International reserves, I should say, our gross international reserves. And that was the time the governor was trying to push so much. And when the governor was pushing so much to push the value of dollar down, some of us came out to say it. He came out boldly to say it wasn't because of his intervention. Until IMF came to complain, World Bank came to complain, and now the same person, the same governor who has said that they were not intervening, now comes to say that they have reduced the intervention by 56. Right. Why are they? Because, sometimes I forgive them. Because, you see, we are too political that we don't want to face facts. And so once NDC is my party, MPP is my party, it doesn't matter what they do. We will support. If it were any civilized country, and listeners and viewers should forgive me. The governor should have resigned.
Yeah.
President Mahama, as a head of state and head of government, also came out to say that the reason for the strength of the city was because of fiscal consolidation. I came to protest. In fact, some of our colleagues, my colleagues at the university, one even fought to me. Now he's one of the guys who had
appointments.
I don't want to mention his name, who is also an economist, came out to say, in fact, on Peace FM, say it is fiscal consolidation. I call him and say, Master, be very careful when we do this thing. We are disgracing our university because fiscal consolidation says to 7 weeks cannot drop CD from 14.9 to 10.3. It's not possible. But the bank intervene and pump so much dollars into the system. That is the reason. Don't. And you see, they advised President Mahama. He came up boldly to say the good measures is fiscal consolidation. Now, recently, when he during his press, meet the press, he now said it is intervention.
Yeah.
So you see how you are not helping the president. If it were UK and the other places, somebody would say that the president should resign based on this. Because you can't mislead Ghanaians. One time.